Hey, welcome to this section of the Boat Expo. I'm really excited. We've got another technician here with us today. Over 15 years experience, has been to the Marine Mechanics Institute in Orlando, Florida, Yamaha school, Honda school, BRP school with Evinrude and Johnson. And he is in Ipswich, Massachusetts. So up in the Northeast, the saltwater environment, the cold and freezing temperatures of winter. So we're going to get a lot of great information. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights and expertise with everybody today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to start with, we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, but what are some of the most important steps for first-time buyers to think about? Just kind of where should they begin as they go down the journey of, hey, honey, maybe we should buy a boat, to, hey, this is the boat, let's get out of the water this weekend?
I usually, if someone's looking for a boat specifically new to boating, never boated before, I usually advise them to find a friend or something like that to get out on the water, see if they like it. It's not one of those things you just dive into. Usually you see people having a good time in boats, so you figure I'll do this in a boat and replicate it. But I always tell people, you may like boating, however, does your significant other, children, relatives, who's ever going to be on the boat, are they into boating, or have they boated before?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. You see the easy part of it. You're out on the water, you got the sun, you got the music, you got smiles and laughter and all that. But there's a lot more to it. To get to that point, if you make some smart decisions, ask yourself some smart questions, and find the right support, you can get to that. But there's also some, kind of obstacles in the way that can lead you astray. And I'm sure you've seen some of those in your experience up there. Tell a couple of stories, if any pop into your head, about somebody that did go a little bit too fast or something like that.
Specifically with the, in the last year with COVID going on, boating, just like RVing, camping, is one of those leisure activities that you can still do while social distancing. So it kind of, we had a lot of first-time buyers last summer, last spring, and I saw more than one person go on Craigslist, go on Facebook Marketplace, and basically bring in a rather expensive boat to me that didn't seem to run, and they had just bought it. And the motor ends up being no good, or blown up, low compression, which is a fix that requires either a new motor or the motor be rebuilt at thousands of dollars. So they bought something that wasn't what they wanted to do, which was simply put the boat in the water and use the boat.
And a lot of times, it's not like a car. You look at a car, sometimes you're like, junk. I know, I'm around cars all the time, may not be that mechanically inclined, but you can look at a boat that looks perfect.
Sure.
And they didn't winterize it, they didn't change their impeller and overheated, but all indications is, man, this is a great deal. This is going to be a perfect boat for my family. What are some things, as a technician that is around this stuff all the time, if you were going to buy a boat, or your best friend was going to buy a boat, what inspections would you do on that before you said, all right, let's write the check, I'm good to go on this?
I tell people to, well, number one, look around the area and see what boats are popular. A first-time boat buyer, I tell people to start small, but you also need to choose the type of boat that's adequate for the environment that you're going to be using it in. Don't buy a flat bottom boat if you're out in the open ocean. In the same term, don't buy an offshore boat if you're boating in a smaller lake. So, what I tell people is look around, see what go to the local ramp or the local lake or the local beach, and see what most people have, see what you see more than one of. Chances are that's a good boat for the area, for your
And talk
needs.
to them. Yeah, I always like to encourage people, if you're going to be at a marina, go to that marina and just walk the docks and
Sure.
say hi to people, bring a
People
drink
are
for them, and they'll be
sure.
glad to talk about their boat.
People are generally really friendly, and they'll tell you what they don't like too.
Yeah.
But a great area to start is just looking at various types of boats.
Yeah. So
Trying to
you
figure
have
out
you
what you
may
want.
yeah, that when you talk to people about boating and things like that, are there some questions that you ask them to, hey, I'm a first time boat buyer. I've been out with friends, I've rented something, but I've
Sure.
never done it. How do you get them to kind of
I
visualize what they're going to do on the
I mean,
water?
I try and steer people a little bit. The first
Okay.
question I ask them: have you boated before? Because you can be experienced, you can never have set foot on a boat before. So I like when people are getting into it, but I ask them where they're going to boat, and number one comes down to what you want to spend. Sometimes people will say as little as possible. Sometimes they'll give me a range. But if you know what your comfortable budget is for the boat, then you can narrow it to what type of boat. And I always try and put people in the newest boat possible. It's true you can find an older boat with that's been taken care of well, but I try and put people into newer technology, which means 4-stroke, fuel injected, 2-stroke direct injected, something turnkey, something manageable.
And let me just, the reason I really appreciate you joining us is you're not a boat dealer, right? You're
Right.
a service technician. So when he says the first thing I ask is a budget, it's not from a salesman's perspective of,
Right.
oh, you said 40 to 50, we're going to put you in a $60,000 boat because I know I can get you there.
Sure.
You're talking to it from a practical, this is what you need to think about boater perspective, not as a salesperson. And I really appreciate that mentality. I think
Sure.
that's valuable to know. When you get that budget set and you kind of get that, okay, this is the type of boating. Kind of, where do you go next with them? If you and this is all just kind of a consulting service that you offer people. I
Mhm.
don't even know if you do. Hey, I'll go out and find you that boat. But
I do. I generally bill it hourly.
okay.
For my current customers, if they're looking to move up or down, I'll help them out. And,
Do you have a next step that you go to after you say, okay,
I
budget,
do.
where are you going to boat? How are you going to boat? Where do you go next with that?
I tell them to look around, either a local ramp, look on Craigslist, some online sites, useboats.com, yachtworld.com. Give me some input as to what you like, and I'll give you back some feedback as to what I think about that boat, what I think about that engine. You can take my advice or leave it, but it's generally speaking on past experience. If I don't
Yeah,
have any
it's
experience with something, I won't tell you good or bad. But
yeah, but in 15 years around the water as a profession, and
mm,
my assumption is you enjoyed the water prior to that 15 years
yep,
as a kid. But that progression, I think, is really important. And there's also an aspect of what am I going to be proud to own? My father-in-law bought a 2-3 years ago, bought a Cobalt, great boat, perfect. What he would have been happiest in would have been a Tri-Toon. He was on an inland lake. He's got a lake house. They've got a big family. That's what he would have been happy at. But in his mind, he wanted a sleek fiberglass boat. And I said, then get the Cobalt. You're going to love it. If you got the Tri-Toon, like in 2 or 3 years, you'll change and you'll realize that you like that. But you've got to be in love with the style of boat, and it has to fit the style of boating that you want to do and the water that you're on. I think you got to hit both of those.
and when you're looking for a used boat, you can't be. It's not like a car where you want, I'm looking for a Ford Explorer, 2018. You got to have a type of boat because they don't make as many cars as they do boats. So I tell people to email me a few different boats that you like, and I'll give you feedback on them. And then from there, I usually say, hey, you got to go look at them, or we got to go look at them. You got to bring it to me so I could look at the engine, go over the boat. But there's a lot of things that people can do themselves without a mechanic or anything else. If you're going to look at a private sale boat or even a boat on a dealer's lot, I mean, you want to look to see it. It's just like a car. Look to see if the boat looked like it's been taken care of. Is it clean or is it full of leaves? You know, has it been covered or not, and the sun damaged the cushions and the interior? You can tell a lot by the condition of the trailer, the boat, everything. If you know you see a lot of gouges and it's dirty, then the person selling the boat is probably not cleaned it when they had the boat, let alone cleaned it when they're going to sell the boat.
Yeah.
So you can tell a lot by how things look and talking to the previous owner. One thing you really want to look for is maintenance records. Boats operate in one of the harshest environments known to man, especially salt water. And it takes its toll on boats, fittings, trailers, engines. So you want to see what's been done to the boat. Has it been cared for? I'd rather see a boat with more hours that's been used rather than a boat that's sat for more than 2 years. That's usually the threshold I give people. Don't buy a boat if it's sat for more than 2 years. You can potentially run into some real headaches.
Yeah, especially in the salt water with that corrosion and, you know, not getting that oil and that lubrication through all those parts. That
yes.
yeah, it's gonna catch up with you.
I tell people to relate, you know, and we're speaking in terms of the boat's engine, not the structure, but
Sure.
you know, boats' engines, just like your car, they want to be working, they want to be moving continuously, they want to be used. If you can picture yourself, you know, if you were injured and laying in a hospital bed, if you were there for a month, you can't just get up and run a marathon. You know, you have to work into it slowly. Whereas if you train for the marathon, you know, once every few days, it's an easier transition.
Yeah, I like that analogy. That explains it perfectly. So you've been to Yamaha, to Honda, to Evinrude Johnson with BRP. Do you have a favorite outboard? Do you have some outboards that you say stay away from these, or are you like, hey, it's all depends on the maintenance? Where do you fall in your opinion and your experience?
Depends on the maintenance. The other thing I go into is parts availability. As long as you can get something serviced, everyone asks, or a lot of people ask, what's the best outboard? I generally say, and you'll hear mechanics say this everywhere, whatever you can get reliably serviced. You know, don't buy a Mercury if the nearest Mercury dealer is 200 miles away. Chances are, even if you just need parts, chances are you're going to need that dealer for something. So, you know, if there's a Honda dealer, you know, a town over, well, I would look for a boat with a Honda. Go to that dealer and say, hey, if I buy this, will you potentially service this when I need service? Because, you know, boats need service, and unless you're going to do it yourself, you're going to rely on a boatyard or a marina, you know, to help you out at least once, or, you know, a few more times a year.
Yeah, and parts, you're gonna need parts. I mean, even if you do your own service, you're gonna need access to the right things. And as you get into the 300-hour service and beyond, now there's some things that aren't just easy as a click of the button on the internet. You know, you may have to get some parts that are a little bit more difficult to get your hands on, for sure.
Sure.
And the right ones too, the right kits and all that with seals.
Right.
What are your thoughts on Evinrude right now? Obviously, they stopped production, you know, a couple months ago, 5-6 months ago, as we record this. What are your thoughts on how long you think parts will be available, and if somebody's got an Evinrude, or if they could buy an Evinrude on the boat that they find? What would be your opinion and take on that?
Yeah, that was unfortunate. They stopped production. They had a good product. You know, and it's still a good product. I feel bad I'm not an Evinrude dealer, but I service a lot of Evinrudes.
Okay.
Service a lot of E-Techs. So they have a good product. And I wouldn't be scared to buy a new Evinrude if someone had one left over or a few years old. However, just find someone that will be willing to service it. I think parts will be available for years to come, at least probably 10 years.
Okay.
I assume there's some sort of agreement going on. So that being said, I also, if I had the choice between an Evinrude and let's say a Yamaha, I'd probably pick a Yamaha just because the company's actively producing new engines.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Unless you can get a deep discount on that motor, and I would expect a discount to buy a motor that the company is no longer making new ones, even if they're making parts. I would expect some sort of deeper discount than a.
Okay. Yeah, I've got that same opinion that at some point parts are going to be more difficult to come by, but you're a lot closer to that supply chain than I am. So
sure.
I
haven't had any. I haven't had any issues getting parts, and I order plenty of Evinrude parts.
They come through a lot.
In terms of if you want to know motors to avoid, some engines, you can have a 3-year-old motor that's the most durable ever, and the person never changed the oil and hit everything. You want to look at the motor and see if they have service records, or just ask people, hey, what have you done to this? If they've spent money on the service, they're going to tell you because they remember it.
Yep.
Did a water pump, did thermostats, did plugs, and anything like that. So you want to look for information and past history of the boat. But, a few engines come to mind are, early 2000s, they had a lot of 90 horse and below 4-strokes that were carbureted, multi-carburetors. They were great engines until ethanol fuel got introduced somewhere around 07, 08. And these engines clog quite a bit. They won't idle. They're very hard to service the carburetors and clean them. So generally anything 4-stroke, bigger horsepower, 90 horsepower, 115, with carburetors, stay away from. It's my opinion. Also, in terms of like Evinrude Johnson, they made, if you Google, fuel injected 2-stroke Ficht engine, not an E-Tech. The E-Tech came in 05, 06, but 05 or older Ficht engines, those do have some issues getting parts for. In terms of the computers and things like that. I have plenty of them running around reliably, and I service them, but also too, it's difficult to find people that know what they're doing to service those engines.
Yeah, I think your number one thing that you said is finding the technician that's going to be your technician.
Sure.
Hey, what are they most comfortable working on? I mean, as a technician, my guess is you use your computer every day to hook up to these engines and to do some diagnostics. And it's not just, hey, I'm turning wrenches and I'm fixing the mechanical piece, but there's a lot of technology in these engines in the last 10, 15 years, probably more than that.
Yeah, there sure is.
All right. So yeah, go ahead. I want to talk about that a little bit more.
I just tell people to, just, make sure you know who's working on it. Do they have they had schooling? Have they had training? Are they fixing a lot of boats? People that aren't busy right now, every boat repair person I know in this area is looking for help and quickly go to 3 weeks backed up, if not more, in the springtime. So we're trying to service everyone reliably and get them out there having fun. Just, if people aren't having fun, we're in the business of selling fun. You don't need a boat generally to get to work. So we're trying to sell a good time. We don't want you to break down or things like that. So we're trying to lead you in the direction that will result in fun on the water.
Yeah, and when you make those smart decisions up front, it's going to lead to that more often and for a longer period of time. As you probably have had a lot of boats come through. What are some unexpected things that, as a first-time boat buyer, or even an experienced boat buyer, that you may not consider because it hasn't come across your experience, but you see, hundreds, thousands of boats come through your shop every year. What are some of those unexpected things, or things that you're like, man, I didn't even think about that?
The number one thing I usually say, someone's looking to get into boating. Well, number one, I'll ask them, hey, where are you going to put this boat? And sometimes people don't think about that. It's let's say it's a 20-foot boat. Are you going to put it in your driveway and launch it every weekend? Are you going to store it in the water here in the Northeast? If you store it in the water on a mooring, on a slip, leave it in the water, the definition of that is longer than 2 weeks at a time. The boat needs to be bottom painted. So what people sometimes don't realize, they'll find a great boat, however, it doesn't have bottom paint. Maybe it came from a lake, maybe the people just trailered it. And a hidden cost there is painting the bottom for the first time. So bottom paint, unlike your house, needs to be done yearly. The course of that is barnacles and basically seaweed growing on the bottom of the boat. Yes, you can scrape it off, but it also makes the boat slow down, worse fuel economy. So there's a hidden cost there in terms of painting the boat for the first time. It can be, if you do it correctly, find the water line, prime the bottom, couple coats of bottom paint. It's pretty involved, but it's on your average 18 to 20 foot boat, you're looking at anywhere $800 to $1,200 that first bottom job.
And like you said, to do it right, again, finding the right person to be supporting your boating lifestyle, because there's some people that will slap bottom paint on a boat
and it falls right back up.
It's not the right way. Yeah, you've got to prep it. You've got to find the water line. You said multiple coats. I mean, that's the right way to do it, and that's going to cost you. Somebody will come in and say, "I'll do it for $500." Well, you're going to get what you pay for in boating. And anything else that jumps to your mind that might be unexpected that people don't think about?
I generally would say, make sure you have, if you're going to trailer a boat, a lot of first-time buyers will do that. Make sure you check out and make sure your car or truck can adequately tow the boat. That's another, I bought this 20-foot boat. However, my car is right on the verge of the weight limit. Hey, do you have to change cars, which is, a sizable out-of-pocket expense.
Yeah, and you have to know how to calculate the actual weight of the boat. So yeah, they list the dry weight.
Right.
If it's a fuel outboard, it may not even have the outboard on it, may not have all the other. What would you all include in the weight of the boat if you were calculating it for your
number one, fuel? If you got 40 gallons of fuel or 50 gallons of fuel, that can be an additional 700-800 pounds of fuel.
Yeah, about 7 pounds per gallon. Is that? I always get water and fuel mixed up.
I believe that's. I forget the exact weight, but it's a decent amount of weight. And then all the stuff you throw in, and it does add up. Anchors, coolers, safety stuff, fish, kids, I don't know, everything. Boats only get heavier, they never get lighter.
Yeah, and you've got the boat that's 10 years old that maybe it's sucked in some moisture. Yeah, and you've got an extra 300 pounds of water weight.
Sure.
Just because it's an older vessel. So yeah, think about all that, and it's about the stopping power. It's about the transmission not wearing out. It's about being able to pull it out of a steep ramp. All of those things need to be considered. That's a great point. I don't think I've talked about that in any of my videos. Anything else that might catch people off guard, expense wise, storage wise, service wise, in those first couple of years? Because I know that's when you see them a lot.
I tell people, if you're looking for the real world costs, let's call a 20-foot, your average 20-foot boat used in salt water. If you don't do much to it other than clean it, you have my company or someone else professionally handle it all. and you bottom paint it, let's say you shrink wrap it, which is a plastic coating for the winter, so that the lovely snow we have here, you know, and in the Northeast doesn't melt and create ice in your boat. You're probably looking at a couple $1,000s a year. That's a good number for a 20-foot boat to have someone take care of it fall and spring. You know, I tell people sometimes you'll have some heavier years. You could have something break, a pump, bilge pumps, batteries. Other times you'll have lighter years. All you needed was, you know, the thing winterized and covered, and you know you'll spend $1,200. You know, so I usually tell people you're looking at a good, you know, over $1,000 to maintain this thing. That's not including mooring or slips, things like that.
Yeah, fuel,
pretty,
all that. Yeah,
fuel, right. These things use a decent amount of fuel if you're driving around.
Yeah, I think we've got a calculator that, you know, in every area is a little bit different, but you have to plan on the maintenance and the storage and the fuel, but you also have to plan on something at some point's going to break, and you have to know that we're going to have to pay for that and fix it. And you want to budget,
you know, and things, you know, things in salt water, especially if they're over 5 years old. You know, a great story is I had a friend with me on my personal boat, and you know, we're fishing and catching mackerel and putting them in the live well, and the live well stopped working. He's like, I don't understand, it just broke. I'm like, yeah, it's my boat, but it's pumping salt water through it. It's probably 10 years old. It just gave up right now, you know, and those things happen. So, you know, it's not crucial to the function of the boat, but it's, you know, nav lights go out, bilge pumps break a lot. You know, you need to replace those things. Right?
Yeah, and the preventative maintenance is going to help avoid a lot of it, but there's always going to be something. And that my opinion is, get what your take is, you're better off addressing it sooner as opposed to just letting it sit, because it gets more expensive and limits your enjoyment, I think.
I try, you know, my own customers, if they're having a problem, you know, at some point, even, you know, if a bilge pump doesn't work or they notice something about the boat, let's try and address it in the fall, because here in the Northeast, people don't use their boats in the winter. So they sit for 6 months. That's good and bad. Like I said, things don't like to sit. However, you know, they're getting less use, so it's less wear and tear. But I tell people to you know, tell me if something's wrong. Either we can fix it in the fall when we have more time, or we can address it and we know it's coming before, you know, May or June or July, whenever you want to put that boat in.
Yeah. Explain to people the cycle of your work. So if I come to you on, you know, May 15th and say, hey, I need my boat ready for the water on Memorial Day, how likely is that to happen? And what are some things they should think about as far as the way the industry really works when they're looking at service, compared to taking their Cadillac into the service department and get a 45-minute oil change?
Sure. You know, a lot of what happens here is, you know, we have an influx of business, you know, when everyone wants to use their boat in May, June, July, and also September, October, November, when they're trying to put their boats away. But then, you know, there isn't as much demand in the winter or in the middle of the summer. So boat places can't always staff for optimum efficiency. I know I can't. You know, in the best time that you know, May or June. So many places often go to 3 weeks getting backed up. With the complexities, if you're painting a bottom, you know, you only get a few bottoms done per day. So to get hundreds or, you know, many boats in all at the same time, it needs to be planned out. And like right now, I'm doing work in preparation for May.
Right.
It's the only way to get it done. So the sooner you can prep or talk to someone about getting your boat ready, the better. I equate it to like here in the Northeast, we have snowstorms and we'll get blizzards at times, and people always like try and get their snowblower serviced like the day before the blizzard, and you go in and the small engine guy's like overwhelmed, and then you don't have the snowblower for the blizzard. So it's similar to that. I tell people, plan well ahead. Get your boat out early. Figure out if everything's there, if the battery's charged, if your oil's full, or what's going on. Get the thing squared away a good month before you plan to use it.
Yeah, have a maintenance log so hey, it's been a year, 2 years since we've done the impeller. That needs to be on the list. I can do that in December. Who cares?
Right.
Just
I do a lot
it done
of that stuff in the winter. Yep.
Yeah. I love that that insight. I think a lot of people don't realize how different maintaining a car is from maintaining and owning a boat. It's just it's a smaller industry. So you don't have that scale and that efficiency always. So on the coast or on the shore up there where you are, what are some recommendations on styles of boats, types of boats to consider, ones to avoid that aren't really a good fit for your environment?
But our immediate area, our local area, and and we're north of Boston. We have some sheltered bays, but we also have open ocean. Anytime you're dealing with open ocean, at least here on the East Coast, probably on the West Coast too, but you're dealing with bigger waves, bigger wind. So you're gonna be looking towards more of a V hull. So that means a steeper dead rise provides a softer ride, whereas flat bottom boats are more suited to calm waters. Yes, they're more stable, but they're going to provide like a rougher, pounding, spray in your face type of ride. So a pretty popular boats around here are Boston Whaler, Mako, Edgewater, Regulator, Grady White, a lot of these type of boats. And I try and point people, especially first-time boat owners, not towards the cheapest boat or most expensive, but something that's desirable in the area. And that's what you see a lot of. So that if you don't like boating, or your wife doesn't like boating, or your kids don't like boating, you can turn around and not take too big of a financial hit and sell the thing. Or you can sell the thing and move up. Maybe you want a bigger boat. A couple of years, you get some confidence. Hey, I really like this. I want to get a bigger boat, or maybe a smaller boat. That financial aspect comes back into it. So I may recommend spending more on a boat, because you also on the other side of it will get more out of it. When you go to sell it, you'll get most of your money back.
Yeah, there's two costs. There's the cost of the boat up front, but then there's the cost of ownership. So if you go up to 30 grand and you can sell it for 28 versus 20 and you can sell it for 10, it's a better investment, even though it's a little bit more expensive. That's an interesting way to think about it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that for sure. Are there any styles of boats that you would stay away from? Any engine types that you would stay away from up there in the saltwater or in your environment?
No. It basically amounts to the care and how the boat was used. I've seen 5-year-old boats that are worn out. I've seen 25-year-old boats that look like they're kept in a garage and look like they just rolled off the showroom.
Yep.
So it's really what you find. And a lot of times I tell people, you got to go look at these things. You got to be able to drive and look at them and walk away from them. Sometimes the pictures look really good on Craigslist, and you drive somewhere and it's like, the owner took pictures 4 years ago, and now the boat sat outside and it's full of leaves. That stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, I remember. I found Casey. He was recommended on
Carey.
a website called the whole. Carey?
Carey, yes.
Did I say Casey? Did I
Yeah,
introduce
that's
you as
okay.
Casey?
Yeah, that's
Oh
all
my.
right.
I'm sorry.
I get Gary. I get Gary, Corey, some, different name.
I found you on The Whole Truth. You were recommended on several posts as somebody that, hey, I need a service person in this area. And so we had a conversation, and that's one of the things that we talked about, is you're looking at used boats, and the pictures that you see are vastly different than what you get to. Talk
Which
about
is
that.
okay. It's similar to looking at buying a house.
Yeah.
Go and walk around the house. Could you see yourself in this? I do see buyers sometimes, get down a hole where they go, oh, they really want a bathroom in the center console. Sometimes that's like a selling point, and the boat doesn't have a bathroom in the center console, and they go and they convince themselves, well, I can have one put in. Could you put one? I mean, that either can't happen, or it would be thousands of dollars, where you'd be better off to just find a boat with a bathroom in the center
Yeah.
console rather than try and modify something that is not easily modified.
Yeah, there are certain things that are easy to add, certain things that you definitely don't want to.
Yeah.
So let's talk about size boat. So you mentioned, 20 footer, it could be a good. Is there anything that you think is too small, too big as you're getting started, or to think about in the terms of the size of the vessel that you're looking at as the first time, novice boater?
Sure. I mean, if someone, the amount of people you're going to take out in the boat factors into it too. If you want to take out 6 people, a 13-foot whaler, could it do it? Yes. But, you're not going to go water skiing or anything like that. A boat may not get off on plane. You also want to be, in terms of capacity, be safe. So I generally, if someone has not operated a boat before, I try and do like a 17 to 18-foot boat, center console preferably. That way they can walk around, they can, feel the vision, and also towing it, transporting it, maneuvering it. A 17, 18-foot boat is about the size of a pretty big car. And when you get into it, it's a lot of vehicle to maneuver. And boats do not maneuver like cars, as people will figure out. So learning how the boat goes through the water and dealing with it can be a nerve-wracking experience. However, I tell people to take a course or a Coast Guard course, or go out with a friend that knows what they're doing. And as long as you take it slowly, I generally find it's enjoyable. Again, you want to have fun. You don't want to make another stress in your life.
Yeah, and learning just a couple of simple basic things about, hey, how does my boat turn? Like, what's the,
Sure.
where's the angles, and the what happens when I put this input into the controls and go reverse? Just knowing what your boat's going to do and getting comfortable with that, slowing down that first 2 or 3 times out as a learning experience, instead of, hey, let's load up the whole family and go.
Right.
I think that's going to make your enjoyment a lot
I
more.
encourage people to go to the ramp on a weekday as opposed to a busy weekend. Practice backing the thing up in a parking lot. Practice launching it. Take it slow. Make sure the battery's charged before you leave the house. The other thing is, it's just time on the water. You gotta put some time into it. Just like golf. I mean, no one just picks up golf clubs and is a good golfer. You got to put some time into it.
Yeah. I think that's great advice for everybody. Even some experienced boaters, I think, could take, hey, let's take a day and get to know my boat better, and learn some things from people that have done it before. Let's switch styles a little bit and go to pontoons. They're becoming more popular in saltwater environments. What's been your experience, and what advice do you have when it comes to pontoons and saltwater?
I do have a couple customers, maybe a bit more in my fleet, that have pontoon boats in saltwater. It's usually the fittings on what separates a saltwater and freshwater boat is, are the fittings, which are the, hinges and screws, everything that's bolted onto the boat, are they made out of stainless? Some pontoon boats are marketed as saltwater pontoon boats. I assume they have more stainless. As long as it's not open ocean, I find pontoon boats do fine. They're great for people because, number one, they're stable. You can bring a lot more people on a pontoon boat than you can a similar length V hull. And they provide, like, a secure area on the water, especially with little kids, is almost a gate around the whole thing. So there's somewhere for everyone to sit, So I do recommend pontoon boats. Some of the challenges, they're almost always made out of aluminum. Again, going into the bottom paint thing, aluminum, there's a special type of bottom paint, expensive, that needs to go on there. And there's a special method for the first time bottom paint in terms of the primer and etching the aluminum and getting the paint to stick on the bottom of the pontoons.
Yeah, and tell them what happens if you do that bottom paint wrong and you use the wrong material.
You use the wrong bottom paint, which traditional bottom paint, the chemical or the material in the bottom paint that repels the growth is copper. So if you use a copper-based bottom paint on aluminum, the copper and aluminum react with each other, and the pontoons end up corroding out.
Yeah, it's
for any aluminum boat.
A lesson learned the hard way by a lot of people when they started
Can't
doing
just
that.
paint it with regular bottom paint. You need, a copper-free. They do make them. And we use a lot more. We use a lot. We're getting into a lot more of copper-free bottom paint.
Oh, are you really? Okay, interesting. Yep. We don't do in the freshwater. We're fortunate,
right.
It's trailer dry stacks. Not a lot of boats are left in the water, but it goes back to me how important it is, and this has come up in a number of my interviews, how important it is to have your local boating support, a good technician, a good marina, a
good
captain
advice,
to help you train. Just people that know what they're doing.
People come to me, even if I don't know the answer or can't service it, I try to point you, here, go ask this person I know, or, give this person a call and see what they say.
Yeah, that's some of the best advice I think people will get in this whole expo, because they can get then all of their future questions answered by an experienced, knowledgeable person like yourself.
The other thing in terms of used boats is I really stress to people, try and test drive or drive the boat that you have narrowed your search down and are going to buy. Even if you've been on the same boat, I want to see this boat function in the water. Engines run a lot more easily on earmuffs or flushing devices in a driveway than they do with the back pressure in the water.
Yeah, for sure. Under a load is a different world. And I think a boat just feels different in the water too.
It does,
When is this going to work for our family and our style? You put it in the water and all of a sudden it gets a little bit smaller and it's different, for sure.
And not always easily done, like right now when there's ice or cold or the boat's winterized. But, you can run boats as long as there's not ice. Sometimes people will require a deposit or something, but
which is reasonable, I think.
It is reasonable, But I really try and see the boat running in the water is one of the most important things going.
Yeah, as I don't know if
there better be a pretty big discount if I can't water test.
Yeah, exactly. It's a red flag, and I've run boats in snow. I'm sure you have, because hey, it's that important, I think, to do it. As we talk about used boats and the sea trials and things like that, do you have a checklist when you have a client that says, all right, this is the boat I'm looking at? Do you have a checklist you go through, and what are some of the key pieces? We've referenced compression check. You talked about doing the sea trial. What's on your list of must check items on a boat?
Generally start with one point of the boat, which is the battery. Is it accessible? Is it neat? Is it clean? Are there 50 wires on a terminal? There really shouldn't be. Is the battery newer? Is the boat clean? How does the motor run? Does it idle correctly or is it stalling? Compression check, yes, you would have someone do that like me. That's not the end all be all. Sometimes 4 strokes or direct injected 2 strokes. You can get a computer printout by a dealer generally, tell you how many hours, see if it's throwing any codes. If you really want to get down to it, you can do what's called a leak down test on a 4-stroke. Basically, that tells you about the sealing effect on the exhaust, on the different valves and the cylinders in the engine. That's a little more in depth, but again, it goes a little bit further than a simple compression check. That's not all there is to it. There's a fuel system, there's electrical, there's, I'm looking at, does the bilge pump work? Do the lights work? Does everything work? Do the gauges not work? Are things missing off the boat? So you're looking at the boat as a whole.
Yeah, and it's not just the surface area. It's open the little ports to get the access ports and
Sure.
sticking your head in compartments.
Can I even find the bilge pump or can I not reach it? So
yes,
if you can't reach the bilge pump, then I generally have a difficult time reaching the bilge pump.
Yeah, you don't have magic mechanic arms. That's
right, because at some point everything needs to be serviced,
Yeah.
or replaced.
Yeah, it's amazing that that boat builders haven't figured out that truth about boating. Everything needs to be replaced, and you got to be able to access it.
Sure.
Some do better than others on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you wish that first-time boaters knew when they're in the process of buying or after they buy? I think we've talked about a lot of this, but that's kind of my final wrap-up question here. If there's anything we missed.
Sometimes, I just like buying a house, I try to tell people to leave the emotion out of it slightly. It's tough because boats are exciting. You really want this boat. Try not, be ready for the thing to fail an inspection. It could. And then, you go and I tell people there's so many boats. You can find another boat. You may have to look for a while. Let's say you do buy that boat and you're happy with it. It's been, inspected or looked at. Also too, this is state dependent, but it's not always so simple to just register the boat. You need to deal with a title in some states. You do in Massachusetts, and it's not, especially with COVID, it's got to be done through the mail. So even when you buy that boat, registering it and getting the paperwork squared away can take up to another 2 to 3 weeks. I see people, they're ready to go out and they can't register it because, something's stuck in the mail. Just knowing by the time you bring the boat home, you could be facing another 2 to 3 weeks of lag time before you get the thing registered.
Yeah, and we talked. I did an interview with Boat History Report yesterday, and we talked about serial numbers on used boats, especially. You've got a boat, a HIN, hull identification number, an engine serial number, a trailer VIN, and it's real easy to mix up one of those 3 numbers when you're scribbling it down.
And the states, if stuff doesn't match up, especially that hull number, they send it back and you got to start all over again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anything, Carey, that I didn't ask that I should have, or any other experiences you would like to share? This has been awesome, by the way. You've been.
Yeah. I like to grow the industry of boating. It's it's a passion. It's not just a job of mine. And I sell fun. People don't have to boat, so I don't like when people get disappointed by boating. You want people to boat because I want them to come back here and service their boat and keep my business going. So You know, just try and have fun with the boating. You know, it can be stressful buying it and boating, but you know, just I tell people don't do it if it's not fun. So
Yeah, when you do it all right,
try and
the
have a
end
laid
result.
back approach to it.
Yeah, it is such. It's been since 5 years old. I've been involved in boating, and it's had such a major impact, not just on my relationship with my parents, my
Sure.
relationship with my kids now.
Yep.
The memories that you get from
Right.
boating are. I don't think there's many other places you can get those experiences.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's key.
Yep.
So, well, thank you very much. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, if they're in your area in the
Yep.
Northeast and are looking for a tech, looking for an experienced, knowledgeable person, how can they
Yep.
get in touch with you?
Generally, you can either call my shop or you can Google McGinleyMarine.com. My email is Carey, Carey, at McGinleyMarine.com.
Yes, Carrie. Sorry.
Email sometimes is the best way.
Okay.
You know, if you Google us, we'll come up.
Well, I'll put the link and everything down below. Thank you so
Sure.
much for participating in this and sharing your knowledge. This has been a great conversation.
No problem.